So no matter if something was just aerosolized or if it was a bug in the air and it bit you, that's a chemical reaction that's occurring through the air. When something is reading and then registering, the third would be reading, registering. Reading, registering. In any case, if you had the best system for doing those two, it would be a string and a wave. And why that's so important is because a string is what is made up of, when it comes to particles, well, the atom has the string within its fermions. And those are great because they can act as ratchets where the calibration of it can be cranked. And if you're cranking the fermions, it can be making a proper reading. And then whatever is being registered is up for a display screen. Not the name of the game, once you have the best key, is seeing the answer if you're blind to a lock being open or closed, which is actually not intuitive at all when it comes to stuff such as pH levels, rusting, and oxidation of different metals. Because when it comes to metals or fungus, it's very much the same as a plant to an animal. As you're ingesting it, you would want to find out which is the difference if you're a vegetarian, because it very well may come down to how was it prepared. And this is when the fermions would come into play. If someone is cooking, and when you do cook meat, it actually puts out this fat, and so when the fat comes out, you're essentially dealing with a soup. And so what the best cookers have are handling of liquid and solid, very much as they're just registering and reading either. If you cook something well enough, you can either make it turn entirely from a vegetable and make it taste as though it were from an animal. This is what a lot of the fake meats aim to do, be as so much like a animal meat by cooking it. The formation of cooking it before it's cooked is a pre-cooked state. And the more you try to be something such as meat when it is vegetable, plant-based, you would have to be calibrating the fermions and cranking them within a soup-like structure. Aerosolized. If something is aerosolized, that means that it's been put into a particle form and thrown into the air. A different form of air is bugs. When they're inside the air and they bite you, that is the same exact way that an aerosol would enter from the air. Is wavering. Someone chose to put the ostensibly it's mimicking a mustache, but they chose to align it within the circumference of an oval, mimicking the double helix. Simply put, a double helix has the parallel and perpendicular in a rotation of the curve. As a vegetarian, I like to think of I'm eating plants. Well, they were alive once, and then when you cut them off from their stem, they're no longer alive. The same way when you eat an animal, well, you stamp it with a stamper through its skull and then shut its brain down. Well, how much of it is different than the plant. So if you cook and then you put bacon inside of like Brussels sprouts, the fat of the animal will go onto the Brussels sprout the same way as refried beans. It's cooked with like animal fat, and so that will go inside the mix of the refried beans, even though you can't see the animal. And if you scrape off all the bacon, it's still going to be there, just as though this is allowed in it. The image, it won't distort if the IP scanning, IP can scan with the image still with it. Is rust is just like fungus? If so, then the coloration are mirror images of how to telecommunicate. Being innovative is great, but imagine if a handyman was doing a garbage man's work. Or imagine if the scientists were doing the work of a sheriff. What would be the difference if a board was updated when you just needed to make the screws different? There's EMPs, and these are electromagnetic pulses. That is a frequency that is real specific of an entire electromagnetic spectrum. It tends to shut things off, and it's achieved through like a small section of the full electromagnetic spectrum. And so when you have the EMPs, that could be like manifested in particular structures, such as a tangled jumble with multiple spots of being exposed. And so if it's in a particular shape, you're gonna be more than likely having a better chance of achieving EMPs, just in the same regard where the rusting, there's different types of rusting. So you're going to see in a jumbled mess, such as the image captured earlier, where instead of the iconic brown rusting, well, that was achieving a different coloration of metal rust. I've been wanting to capture this for quite some time, and I hadn't really been able to until, well, it keeps popping up, so now I kind of have to. If you have a giant wire, like if it's tangled, almost as though it would be like a tackle box with a fishing line in it, you know, that could get pretty much tangled if it's rustled around. The other day I saw something like that, but it was of kind of a bigger scale, where ostensibly be an electric wire, and it wasn't kind of small, it was a giant like telephone wire wrapped around, and it was open in some ends. And when I say open in some ends, I mean it was exposed at points of the entanglement. And so there are multiple areas where it could have been free range, meaning outwards from within its construct. And that's kind of troubling, because it is very much like what this image would depict as. Notice the coloration is different, and this is actually from the chemical construct, almost as though when the wires are being exposed without any of the rubber outskirting, could deal with some hot spots when the wire is exposed, especially if it's humid out. This, however, is mimicking a different construct where The air looks like it's interacting with the corners. Rust is made from the air. This is a different type of rusting, where this chemical construct looks as though it is rusting in a different attribute. How many different types of rust can accumulate? Well, it just depends on the construct what it is initially. In science, there's a control group and an experimental group. This is done on the component for understanding the difference of a subgroup. Math, there is a dummy variable as used as what in the default in computer science would be for dual error correction. There's some great chalk on the road, and I think fortunately for this on the ground, it was not chalk. Or if it was chalk, it might have been just like an oil-based chalk, a pastel. But why would you use that on the ground? So probably be illegal. This must have been spray paint because it isn't coming off. And so I hope this isn't framed, because last time it wasn't. This says don't step on the lava. Is the point what I was trying to make last time, which I'll just make right now, is that this concrete has a stark relation. It is and does have one to the lava rock. A lava rock is, of course, a formation of solidification that the magma consists of. As it cools, a lava rock would ostensibly be the thing that succumbs to the cooling. The exact opposite phenomenon, which you might see as a ice cube melts within a drink, achieving the room temperature, you would see that the absorption of its heat can be seen within the cup as it precipitates through the outsides of it. You may see the fogging and precipitation accumulate, very much as the raindrops from a cloud. They accumulate from within it. The precipitation of an ice cube melting on glass you see on its outside of the glass. Whereas the lava, it would be cooling from the interior. The lava rock would be accumulating from the interior, very much as the rain cloud does onto the raindrop, or the raindrop within the rain cloud.